You got to stand in the middle and yell.
We're ready to start the presentation. So glad you all can make it. You're going to have a really nice lecture here by Rachel. She is the founder of Will Forage for Food. She's very educated and she's still teaching at the University of Michigan. She has a master's in biology.
Ecology, yeah, it's technically, what did they call it? Terrestrial and aquatic biology, because they had to specialize that because, like, is there a third type? Like terrestrial, aquatic, what? But that's my degree, terrestrial and aquatic biology.
She offers workshops and classes, and I had the privilege of taking a walk with her in December, I think it was, at Oakwood Nature Park. And
yes.
It was a blast. And so hopefully she's got some classes coming up that she can tell us about. And she'll definitely tell you about what plants are edible, berries, leaves, mushrooms, all kinds of stuff.
All kinds of stuff. Worms. Maybe not worms. Thank you. How's it going? So yeah, I'm Rachel, and I own Will Forage for Food. And I was asked to kind of tell, by my groupies back here, to kind of tell how I got into this and how I got the business started. And some of them know the answer to this, and some of them asked me about it. And the ones who know the answer said, no, you got to tell everyone. So I'm going to tell everyone. All right. So how did I start this? When I was like 9 months old, I was in a backpack and I was dropped on the ground next to a bunch of morels, and I was called the morel whisperer for the rest of my life. That's how I started. Like, my parents did this. I did it growing up. They were both teachers. They were off all summer. So we had like 4 months every year where we traveled around and we camped and we did all kinds of stuff. And like, my dad's big thing is every place we went, every time we went, didn't matter if we were there for 1 day or 10 days. We had to, at some point, have a meal that we completely got ourselves. And so we would go and we would catch bluegill and we'd pick berries, and then we'd put everything over the fire and we'd have this really crappy meal with no salt. And he made it so fun. So fun. And I didn't even know this was weird until I was like 12 or 13 years old, and I went on a class trip and we stopped at McDonald's and I picked onions out of the landscaping, and that's not a thing to do in junior high. So that's how that started. How did Will Forage for Food start? I found a meetup. You guys have a meetup group, right? I found a meetup group. This was like 2006 or 7. Meetup was just starting. And it was a foraging meetup. And so I joined the meetup and I thought, this is going to be so cool. And I went to like one meetup, and the lady who was running the meetup decided she was going to shut it down. I was like, well, I'll do it. And then I started making events and thinking I was going to go out and meet other foragers. And every time I went somewhere, I was the only one that knew what I was doing. Everybody else was there to learn. And so I was teaching. And I did that for like, I don't know, probably close to 2 years. And then I realized that I do this for pay during the week, and maybe I shouldn't be doing it for free on the weekend. And so I went to shut the meetup down, and people were like, no, don't do that. We'll pay you. What? Are you guys serious? And they do. At the time, it was just a foraging meetup. But right about the time that people decided they wanted to pay me, I was thinking, well, what should I do with this? And I got off an exit in Ann Arbor, and there was a guy standing there with a Will Work for Food sign. And underneath of him was burdock and nettles and carrots. And I'm like, oh my God, you're standing in soup. And so Will Work for Food became Will Forage for Food. And this is, every single one of these are plants that grow here in Michigan that you can eat, that became my logo. So that's my background, that's my story. So what I'm gonna do for you today is an introduction to foraging lecture. I know I have a lot of people here who came to the Foragers Gathering before and who've seen me before and gone to my classes, and they've been introduced to foraging, but we're gonna pretend that nobody has any clue. And we're gonna start at the beginning, all right? So introduction to foraging. First of all, what is foraging? And it depends on where you look, what the definition could be. Foraging for some people is just plants and mushrooms. Foraging for other people includes hunting. Foraging for some people even includes what we might call gleaning, right? Because you're just foraging, you're finding. That's all it means, finding, right? So you can define it how you want. I kind of limit my teaching anyways to wild foods. I don't hunt. I have the hand-eye coordination of a blind, handless thing. So like I can't hunt. I can fish and clean a fish and do things like that, but I leave that teaching to other people who are experts in those. I teach about plants and mushrooms because that's what I'm good at. So, all right, yeah, let's jump into it. I like to start with this slide because this represents like one afternoon of foraging. This is, I don't know the exact date, but based on what's in there, I'm going to go with sometime in late September, early October. Right? And a friend of mine went out in his pickup truck and we drove up and down the back roads in the middle of Genesee County in the country. We walked less than a quarter mile to get all of this food because it all came out of the ditch. Right? All of this. We've got butternuts, an entire thing of, but this is like, you know how many cookies I made with this? This is, and butternuts, you can't buy that. You guys are all like, what's a butternut? Exactly. You can't buy this. There's nothing that tastes like it that you can buy. But we got them free out of the ditch, right? Hazelnuts. You guys know hazelnuts. You buy those for very expensive prices at the store. They are free in the ditch. Hickory nuts. We got hickory nuts. Hickory nuts are like pecans, but better, that are free in the ditch. Pears, apples, a whole bunch of mushrooms. There's puffballs and what are called horse mushrooms in there. Black walnuts in here, and then hops, just in case you want to brew beer, right? All of that free in the ditch in just a couple. It took us 3 times as long to process all of this as it did to gather it. And that's something that new foragers like don't get at first, and that's fine. It takes a little time. It takes more time to process and clean. It's not grocery store food. I got to go in there and I got to get the husk off of all of those nuts, and then I got to crack them all, and then I got to pick them out of the shell. Right? That takes time. Right? It's not like just opening a bag. Right? So there's a lot of time that goes into processing the food, but finding the food is really easy. Right? It's all there. So yeah, and not only that, just in perspective, this is made out of cattails, this basket. This is made out of black ash, and we took the box out of the garbage, which if you're thinking gleaning is foraging, we foraged the box, right? So when I decided to put this presentation together to introduce people to foraging, I polled a bunch of people who forage a lot. And I was like, why do you do this? Because people always ask me, why do you do this? And why do I do it? I do it because I don't know what else to do. I've been doing it since I was that big, right? It's just part of who I am. It's part of what I do. I love doing it. I can't imagine not doing it. But why do other people do it who like come to it as an adult? Why do they do it? And these are some of the reasons I got. People like that it's fresh, right? Fresher than grocery store. It's like having your own little farm. You get farm fresh food. It's local, so it's not transported all over the place. Some people are concerned about things like that. It's all organic. I personally, some of the things I like the fact that it's relaxing and I'm exercising at the same time. That's like double bonus for me because I have trouble relaxing and I hate exercising, right? So you're doing both. Another thing that's huge for me is taste. There's like, what, 6 things at the grocery store? Like, there's so much variety out there, right? And so many things that taste so good. Like, I can't describe to you what those butternuts on the previous slide taste like. They taste like if you took a walnut and then coated it in like really good butter and sugar and then roasted it a little bit, but not sweet and not fatty, right? And the hickory nuts, they taste like better pecans. How do you describe that? Better pecans, right? There's so many awesome tastes. Another thing about it that a lot of people said, and I was even talking to my friends at the table back here, one of them said it right as we were getting ready. It's a security thing. You lose your job, you can still eat, right? I have worked at U of M for over 20 years. There have been times when I have been this close to quitting. And you know what? If I came all the way close, I would have been okay. I had a friend that went down to Kentucky for a job interview one time, and while he was down there, his wallet was stolen. And this was before, like you could just get a cash advance credit card thing, and he had to wait for somebody to Western Union him money. And so he was stuck with zero money or anything. All he could do was drive his truck to a park. And he had a fishing pole in his truck, and there were plants all over. And so he had dinner, and he took a nap in his truck, and he got up the next day and went to Western Union and got his money. Like, there's a security to this, right? It's not easy to do it all the time, but doing it for one meal is not hard, right? And it's fun. I mean, that's obvious, but that's what people said. It's fun. It's fun. So, yeah, I love this picture. People are like, how have you been doing this? What have you been doing? What do you do? This is me standing barefoot in shorts and a t-shirt in a stand of nettles, right? Yeah, because for whatever reason, they don't bother me, which is something I really like to talk about when we talk about reasons to forage, is because some people, there are reasons not to forage, right? My best friend loves to forage. But if she is like from here to there to the nettle, she's going to break out. If there's a mosquito within 100 miles, it found her. And she's got a mosquito bite that big, right? Like everything finds her. And so when she goes out to forage, it's miserable for her. She loves to do it, but it's miserable for her. The only time she can do it is like in the fall after we get a frost, the bugs are gone. She gets out. So I forage, I bring her stuff. She cooks me some awesome things like chicory pudding, which you have no idea what that tastes like, but it should be on every 5-star menu in New York, right? And you can't get it unless you forage. So this is another afternoon of foraging. This was also in the fall, probably like maybe August, September. We've got several different mushrooms here, some crab apples, some little grapes, more apples, spice bush berries, which is another thing that you can't get. So this is just that same basket made out of cattails, right? So this is just a fun thing to do. And then I also threw up this picture up in the top that burdock root, that's $5.99, and sunchokes are $3.99. Those are pre-COVID prices. This is an old PowerPoint. That's Whole Foods. Both of those grow in the ditch for free, right? So yeah, top 10 reasons to forage. Okay, but is it practical? Like, okay, it's fun. You can get some exercise, but really, is it practical? There's a cost of learning to forage, of course. But if you just do this like as a casual hobby, you get an immediate return on your investment. Like, oh, I learned 10 plants, and now on my way home, I can just pick them from the driveway to the house, and I can make a salad, right? It's immediate. It's immediate. You can learn things that grow right in your yard, right? If you really want to make it a serious hobby, more like what I do or some of my friends that came to groupie me today do, like some of these people, we go out regularly, we put stuff in our freezers, and we eat foraged foods, not every meal, but frequently year round, right? Significantly increasing our self-sufficiency just because we have a hobby where we go out once a week for a few hours and pick crap out of the ditch, right? So, and I do know a few people who make foraging a lifestyle. And if you make it a lifestyle, it can be your primary way of living. I mean, humans lived this way for thousands and thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years, right? You can do it. In order to really do it at a lifestyle level, though, you need a community. There's a lot of things, just like I was saying earlier, I'm really good with the plants and the mushrooms. I'm not so great with the animals, right? Well, you need multiple people. Even if I was good at it, you can't do it all by yourself, right? You need a community. You need division of labor. You need certain people. I'm going to go out and pick everything, and I just drug 20 pounds of grain 6 miles back to the camp. Somebody else needs to process it, right? So we do have community events in the foraging community where we get together and you're going to laugh, we have nut parties. We do. We all get together and crack nuts, right? We have wild rice parties. We have parties where we just get together, and I think it might even be on the next slide here. Hang on. We have parties where we just get together, and make stuff like that. We just spent the whole day putting stuff in jars. just wild food. Everybody bought stuff and we put it all in jars. So community is good. It really makes the difference. And time really makes a difference for it as well. Like it takes time to learn. A plant is going to come into season and it's only going to be in season for 3 or 4 weeks. Most plants. There's some plants that have really long seasons, but most plants are only going to be in season for 3 or 4 weeks. So by the time you've picked it and identified it and picked it again, and now you're comfortable about it, and maybe you put a little piece in your mouth and now it's dead until next year. And you've forgotten about it because it's been 50 weeks, right? And so it takes a few years for these plants to become your friends, right? Time is key. You really have to put that in. Okay. Some dietary considerations. I threw this slide in here because people ask me about it all the time. And this is America. Unless you're homeless and foraging to survive, you're not worried about this, right? Because we get more than enough nutrition in our food and more than enough calories in our food. But if you needed to, you could worry about a calorie day. This is a great example right here of a meal that isn't a good calorie day. That's a very balanced meal nutrition-wise. It's got chicken of the woods mushroom, which is that mushroom up there. It doesn't look like it should be edible. It totally is. And it tastes like chicken. Some raspberries, some greens, some milkweed pods, right? There's like, I don't know, maybe 600 calories on that plate, right? I'm not getting back what I put in. So as a modern day forager who maybe could lose a pound or 2, that's a good thing, right? If you're homeless, you need to be more careful about that and get some more calories on that plate. It is not easy to get enough calories with foraged foods unless you're foraging meats, right? Or fish or animal proteins, right? Foraging, it's the same thing. Think about a vegan diet, right? Even a vegan diet, they have to go through so much to get all of their calories. But now you're using just natural food and not that stuff from the factory. It's harder, right? There is a reason people decided to farm. There's a reason we don't all hunt, gather fish, right? But you can get a good balanced diet. People survived off of this for hundreds of thousands of years. You can do it. When you're looking at nutrition, carbs, if you're foraging, you're not worried about carbs. It's all plants, it's all carbs, right? So we're good with carbs. Proteins are problematic. When you're foraging, proteins have to come from animals, fish, insects, which are not as bad as you might think. Crickets, take the legs off first because otherwise they stick in your throat. Mushrooms. Mushrooms have a lot of protein. So that can be a way to look at that. It's also very hard to get fats. We do need some amount of fats in our diet. If you were doing just a strictly foraged diet, it would be like doing a vegan diet. You would have to watch fats because you would need to make sure you're getting nuts and seeds. Those have fats. And again, animal products. That's where we get our fats in a modern day. So you would have to watch that. But this one's interesting to me. Water. How many of you, has anybody foraged for water? Dean? Yeah. Milton, have you foraged for water?
No, I usually use a water filter, but I have.
Have you? Yeah. You can forage for water. There's artesian wells, right, that you can find. You could use water filters and just get surface water. You can dig holes and get filtered water that way. You can tap trees. Everybody knows about tapping maple trees, but there's about 20 or 25 different trees that you can tap, and every single one of them gives you clean water, right? Yeah. Yeah. About tapping trees? Okay. Nice. Yeah. So we can forage water. Fiber is another thing. As Americans, we don't get enough fiber usually, most of us. So foraged foods can really help increase our fiber because they are all plant. Like mushrooms. Mushrooms are little balls of protein, fiber, minerals, and water. Just eat mushrooms, but identify them first. But yeah, forage diets are very high in fiber, and foraged foods generally tend to be much higher in vitamins and minerals than their farmed counterparts because foraged foods are grown on healthy soil. And so they have a balanced vitamin and mineral content in them. And then another thing we don't necessarily think about is microflora. The buzzword Again, this is an older presentation. The buzzword now is probiotics, right? Microbes that are good for your gut. They're all over the foraged food, right? So all kinds of things to consider there. We have seasons for foraging, and they don't necessarily, like we think of winter, spring, summer, fall, but there's way more seasons than that, as you can see. Starting around when things thaw, when we get that freeze thaw in the spring, that's kind of when my year starts as a forager. Right? I know everybody else's year starts at New Year's, whatever. Now mine starts in like Marchish, maybe late February, depends on the year, right? It's sap and bark season. It's when you got to tap your trees to get the sap. And it's also when you harvest bark. Most barks, there are some barks that you can eat, and by you can eat, I mean you won't die. There are no barks that are going to feed you, right? People used them as fillers when they were starving, just so that they wouldn't feel hungry as they slowly starved to death, right? But there are a lot of medicinal barks. There's barks used for, like willow bark is used for pain, and cherry bark is used for coughs, right? Elm bark is used for sore throat. So all of that is harvested in the spring when the sap is running. The barks are most medicinal when the sap is running, right? And so that varies. Like the maple trees, even different maple trees, like the silver maple trees will run a couple weeks before the sugar maple trees. And the sugar maple trees will run like a whole entire month before the birch trees, right? But every tree starts with sap. Whether it's on March 1st or May 1st, they start with sap. That's the beginning of their waking up season. Does that make sense? All right. After sap season comes shoots and sprout season. This is where the leaves start to pop out. Or if it's just a little thing popping out of the ground, the little leaves start to pop out of the ground, right? And at shoots and sprout season, when those little leaves are actively growing, that's when we eat those little leaves, is when they're actively growing. That's when they're nutritious and tender, right? That's when we eat the stem of the plant, is when it's actively growing. Yeah, when they're just like little tiny, it's like, think asparagus, right? You only eat asparagus when it snaps when it's crispy, right? So you get shoots and sprout season. And then we get green season. This is when the plants are like, they're up and their leaves are out and they're doing their thing and they're photosynthesizing and they're in their full glory. And depending on the plant, it might be fully out in green by mid-April, or it might not be fully out in green till July. It depends on the plant. But they all go in the same order, right? Once they've photosynthesized and they've had their leaves in the sun for a while, which might be, I don't know, maybe it's a spring plant and it came up and it put its leaves out for 2 weeks in April and now it's got a flower before May, right? Other plants, they don't flower until August, but it's the next step, regardless. Once the plant starts to flower, you no longer want to eat the greens because now all of the energy for the plant is in the flower, right? The greens aren't probably, most plants, the greens aren't going to hurt you. It's not like they suddenly become toxic. They just become fibrous and coarse and not really that nutritious because the energy, the plant's energy, it's in the flower. Okay, so now it's time to eat the flower if it's got an edible flower. In my opinion, most flowers taste like crap, but some people love them, right? And that's another good side lesson. You're not going to like everything. You don't like everything that's in the grocery store. You don't like everything your mom put on your plate. You're not going to like everything that's out there. It's okay. Just skip over it, right? So after they're done flowering, they produce seeds and nuts and fruits. Kind of that kind of all corresponds because like there aren't any plants that produce nuts and fruits, right? And fruits have the seeds inside. So all of this comes, basically the flower is the plant's having sex, right? And the fruits and the seeds, those are the babies. So it's just, this is the reproductive cycle. And once it starts to have its fruits and its seeds, at that point, you definitely don't want to eat the greens anymore because it's going to be real fibrous, right? You probably don't want to be eating the flowers because the flowers are probably dying back. When everything dies back in the fall and the greens start to die and the whole plant starts to go dormant, that's when you dig up the roots. Because now the plant has taken all of its energy that it had for the whole year and it said, I need to hibernate. Let me stick this down here in the ground. And you're like, thank you. Let me grab that. Right? So Roots, tubers, and bulbs go from mid-fall all the way until it's sap season again. Right? Like if we get a thaw in January, you can go out there and dig up the roots if you know where they are. They're there. Mushrooms are a whole nother thing. Like these should be like a different shape of bullet or something, because mushrooms are a whole nother thing. I have foraged mushrooms in every single month of the year here in Michigan. They do grow. Edible mushrooms. They're not common in January and February, but you can find them sometimes here and there. But different mushrooms are in different times. Like there's some mushrooms that are in the spring, some that are in the summer, some that are in the fall, some that like spring and fall, right? So they have their different times, and so you have to learn the mushroom seasons as well if you're going to do mushrooms. I tell people, if you really want to get into this, pick one or the other first. Focus on either plants or mushrooms for a year or two, and then broaden out, because it's just too much all at once, right? Pick one, focus on it for a while. Or if you want to get into hunting, focus on fish and game. It's basically 3. I just never do this one, right? But they have their seasons. Everything has its seasons. So yeah, that's the wrong button. That button. So some things that are important if you're going to go out there and start foraging. Safety, obviously. And you guys are all in this solar outdoors thing, so I'm sure you've done some safety sort of things and talks. It's the same basic safety principles as hiking or camping, right? You're out there, be careful of heat exposure, and watch if there's lightning, and be careful of some strange dog that's not on a leash, and the same things, right? It's basically the same things. If you're foraging like I do out of ditches, you want to be careful where you're foraging out of ditches. You want to be like on a road that's not being sprayed with chemicals and doesn't have a lot of traffic, doesn't have like a farmer that's going to come out with a gun. That has happened. So no, it was a freaking piece of asparagus and he didn't even want it. He just wanted me not on his ditch. So there are safety issues. Yeah, and part of this is knowing your territory. Now that I know that farmer doesn't want me in his ditch, I do not go to that asparagus patch, right? Knowing your territory is incredibly helpful. It means you know where to go when. It means you know what has been happening on this land, right? That I might need to know about. Sustainable harvesting is important. Obviously, you want to be careful with rare species. Any of the foraging books that you might buy aren't even going to talk about rare species, so that makes it easy, right? Any reputable, I can't guarantee the AI authors, but any reputable human author is not talking about rare species when they're talking about how to forage. You want to be careful of a species life cycle. Ramps is a great one. You guys have heard of ramps? Right? Ramps is we have arguments on Facebook every single spring about ramps, every single spring, because they have this unique life cycle where it takes them about 7 years to reproduce. And so if you're not aware of that, you can quickly decimate a population of ramps, right? So it's important, like as you're learning a plant, learn about its life cycle. How much of this should I be harvesting in 1 year? And keep in mind that other people, if you're on public land, may be harvesting it also, right? And another thing, in this one, I've never seen this in any other book or presentation. Associated species. I was picking blueberries once and destroyed a whole patch of sundews because I wasn't watching where I was stepping. Sundews are rare, right? I should have been more careful. You have to be careful of what else is out there. And after that happened, I was like, yeah, people do this all the time. I see, especially in the spring, morel hunters go out with a big stick and they just beat the crap out of everything looking for the morels, and all the spring wildflowers are dead. Never, not once, and never found them in May apples either. But people beat the crap out of both of them. Destroyed. So be careful of associated species. Just because you don't want to eat it doesn't mean it doesn't belong there, right? And again, some people it's intentional. They're not necessarily thinking about that they're destroying species, but they are. But even unintentional, I was not intentionally stepping on sundews, and I wasn't trying to beat anything up. I was simply picking blueberries. Just be aware. And that's kind of the same principle with any outdoor sport, all right? Be aware of what's out there. Leave no trace, yep. So again, that's sustainable, know your target. You got to know your target. You can't just harvest something. You'd be like, oh, I read about this and I read one paragraph and it sounds really fun. No, read more. Get to know it. Know it. I don't want to say don't go and pick things. Picking things is how you learn, right? Don't let people tell you you shouldn't have picked it. That happens on Facebook all the time too. We call it pick shaming. It is no shame to pick something to try to learn about it. How else are you going to learn, right? But don't pick a bunch of it until you know it. Get to know it. Legal harvest. People always ask me questions about legal harvest. That is like, it's such a loaded question because every park has different rules. Even like, you can't even say, well, on state land you can do this because the state game areas you can do one thing, in the state parks you can do another thing, in the state forest you can do another thing, in the state campground you can do another thing, right? Different rules everywhere. In general, on public land, if foraging is allowed, it's a leave no trace, right? I have never, ever heard of anyone being busted by a conservation officer because they had a little basket full of nettles as they were walking out of the woods, right? I have heard of people been busted for commercial level foraging. They didn't leave no trace, all right? Technically, you're not allowed to harm any plants on public lands in Michigan. Nobody has defined the definition of harm. If I pick a nettle, instead of 1 flower, it'll make 7. So I think I helped it, right? I mean, so yeah, it's iffy. The definitions are very loose. Another thing is a lot of the state of Michigan lands say that you can pick fruits, nuts, and berries. I don't know why we are specifying both fruits and berries. But then there's another clause that says you can't pick seeds. So I'm not sure how you're picking raspberries and nuts without picking seeds, right? These laws were not written by anyone with any remote understanding of botany, right? And so they're very ambiguous. They're very ambiguous. And because of that, it's just, like I said, leave no trace. Don't dig up a bunch of roots and leave a bunch of holes in the ground. Don't strip a bunch of bark off a tree, right? So yeah, private land is a different matter. On private land, you can do whatever you want as long as you have permission and as long as it's not an endangered or threatened species, right? So if somebody says you can come and harvest their ramps and you can take the whole thing and you feel like that's okay with you, so be it, right? That's legal. Something to be careful of, especially if you're like me and do roadside foraging, is toxins and contaminants. You want to be very careful. The biggest one that I see people is on rails to trails. That is a rails. You know what they sprayed that with for decades? It will never be clean. I don't care how pretty it looks. So be careful on the rails to trails. Don't forest where there was a railroad track. You want to be careful like closer to stop signs because where there's stop signs, there's brakes, which release heavy metals and things like that into the environment. So if you're foraging out of ditches, maybe not by the stop signs is a good idea. Kind of my thing is like, here's the road, there's the ditch, and there on the other side is the foraging area because everything runs off the road and runs into the ditch and goes away, and this is safe, right? So that's something to be aware of. Another thing that people are often worried about is, did they spray this, right? If they sprayed it, it's gonna look like it's dying. Right? And another thing that we've noticed over the years, and I can't guarantee this, but several foragers I know have noticed this, is like in right-of-ways in areas, if they're mowing it with the bushwhacker thingy, they're not spraying it because they're not going to pay to do both. So if you can find one where they're whacking it down, that's a good place to forage, right? And then another thing to be careful of is transporting invasive species. I have never heard of anyone getting in trouble for picking a few leaves. I have heard of people getting in trouble for taking garlic mustard home because it's an invasive species and you're technically not allowed to move an invasive species. It's very interesting the way these laws work because I can't pick garlic mustard and take it home. But once I make it into pesto, I can take it wherever I want. So the key is to take your blender into the woods. I don't know. be careful transporting invasive species. You don't want to spread them, and be very careful. Some of them, even a tiny bit into your compost will spread it, right? So be very careful with invasive species and be aware of the fact that of the legality as well as the ethics of transporting invasive species. But there are a lot of really yummy invasive species, yeah.
I've never gotten any been questioned about garlic mustard. I've never been.
No?
It's an invasive species.
Yeah, most parks will be happy to let you take their invasives. It's just if you get that dickhead CO. Yeah, so there's other things that you can forage besides food. I mentioned some medicinal barks and things. This actually was my medicine cabinet at the time of this making. I had challenged myself. Can I do this? And my ex-husband and I replaced everything in our medicine cabinet with forageable and garden stuff. We didn't have any first aid cream or any cough medicine or anything for like 3 years. That was our medicine cabinet. And some of that did come from the garden, but some of it was from forage. But like, I foraged a bowl to put my soup in. I foraged a cup to put my coffee in. I didn't really forage the cup, I bought it, but somebody foraged it, right? My friend here is making a basket out of the bark of this tree that she's using the roots of the same tree to sew it up. And you notice this little knife made out of an antler, and she's sitting on this little hide. Like, we've got a whole bunch of stuff there that we foraged. That, I slept on that bed for 4 years. It had an R value of about 8. It's just weeds out of the ditch. Yeah, Phragmites, right? So you can forage for all kinds of other stuff besides just food. So I want to leave you guys today with some recommendations. You really, like, you can read about it, you can watch YouTube videos, but you got to get out there and you got to do it. That's the only way to really learn it. You have to get hands-on. So there's groups you can join. I do have meetups for Will Forage for Food. There are there's like some Facebook groups. There's different groups you can join, even things like this, right? You guys are already in. And participate in the events. It's not just me. There's often things at like nature centers. I'm not the only one who teaches stuff like this. Jim McDonald teaches in Southeast Michigan quite a bit. He does a lot of plant walks where he can teach. He teaches herbals as well as edibles, but the skills are the same, right? So take classes and then practice. I've got some listings for books. Sam Thayer is the god. You have to, Sam has 4 books. You must start with those. At least one of them. Start with one. It doesn't matter what order you get them in. But yeah, I guess that's true. Don't get the field guide first. Get one of the other 3 first. Ellen Zakos has a really nice book called Backyard Foraging. That is, she's got some cookbooks and stuff too, but she's got one called Backyard Foraging that's really good for urban foraging because it's got a lot of landscape plants that you're going to find like walking around city streets, like in the right-of-ways and stuff. And Lisa Rose is from Grand Rapids. She's got a couple books. One of hers is, I think, called Urban Foraging, so that's another one that's good for Southeast Michigan. Lita Meredith has some preserving books. Ellen Zakos also has some preserving books for once you've got them, how do you cook them? And what do you do with them? Mike Krebel has this little tiny thing called a Scout's Guide to Foraging, and it's like a pocket guide, and it's really good, quick reference. I really like that. And then Teresa Maroney has some pocket guides for like fruits and mushrooms and things like that. So those are nice if like you're just going camping, you want some quick little books to take with you. Michael Quo is the mushroom guy. If you want to get into mushrooms, forget Sam, go with Michael. All right, Sam is the plant guy, Michael is the mushroom guy. Hank and Alan are the chefs. Follow these guys on Facebook if you like food porn. Or Instagram. Or Alan posts a lot on Instagram. So, yeah. I've got some social media recommendations up there, myself all over the place. I really, really like Learn Your Land on YouTube. He's got some great videos, and what's his name? Adam. He has like this natural permanent grin that just makes you happy when you watch him. All right. And then Alexis Nicole, who also goes by Black Forager, she's probably the most famous social media forager in the country. Like, if you haven't heard of her, you should. And she's really upbeat and really fun to watch in small doses. So, which is all it is on TikTok anyway. All right. So yeah, so that's some things. And then I just want to end with a shameless plug for the Great Lakes Foragers Gathering, which is coming up in June. We are having it on Solstice Weekend this year, and it's going to be great. And like, tickets went on sale today, so you can be. Yep, they went on sale today with the web. We went live today with it. We got it all straightened out. So so yeah, we have all kinds of. There's like 25 to 30 instructors. We have vendors. We have classes. We have an acorn blueberry pancake breakfast every Sunday, every year on Sunday. We have, foods and all foraged foods and all of the meals, and it's just great. It's a great camping weekend, and yeah, so that is my thing. Any questions?
Rachel, I did want to say that last June at the Foragers Gathering, you had a list of the foraged food.
Yeah.
And that was a wow moment.
Yeah, we had never done that before, and that was a wow moment even to the people running the event. We were like, holy crap. We had so much foraged food. It was insane.
I like how many?
We had it was a 3-page list.
Yeah, it was.
And it wasn't like we had 2 pawpaws. It was like we had 20 gallons of pawpaw pulp. It was like a huge list of things that people had brought. We have a group of dedicated people who forage all year long to have foraged foods. I mean, we're feeding 300 people for the weekend. It takes all year to collect that much food. My friend and I did the math because one of my friends and I do the bulk of the foraging, and we calculated that the amount of food that it takes to feed 300 people for 4 days is the same amount of food it takes to feed a family of 4 for almost a year, right? So we gather a lot of food, and we were still floored by how much food, because so many other people just bring stuff in and donate it, like that we don't even know it's coming in, and our kitchen staff goes nuts with it. They're like, oh my God, somebody brought in puffballs. Let's do something with puffballs. Last year, somebody brought an entire deer that we didn't know was coming. They threw it in the fire. They're like, let's pit roast it. It just is so organic, this event, you guys. I just put a bunch of people who know what they're doing in one place and let them go. That's it. Yeah.
I saw that you had jarred stuff. Did you dehydrate it or freeze it, or how?
It depends on
For the whole year.
It depends on what it is. Some things are dehydrated, some things are frozen, some things are freeze dried. Just depends on what it is. Like, for example, flowers. You can't do anything other than freeze dry a flower. Right. On the other hand, we might, and some things we process them first, and then we'll just are
the roots okay? Just like some squashes.
Yeah, some of those things we keep in cold storage. Yeah, exactly. So it just really depends on the food, and it also depends on who's foraging it. Some people prefer to can things. Other people don't want anything to do with canning. So there's not really a rule about it.
Some mushrooms are great dehydrated. Some are horrible, bitter and nasty.
Yep. So it really just depends. Depends on what it is. The core group of people that forages for the event have been doing it for quite a while and are experienced with how to take care of things. And then everything else that gets donated that we don't know exactly how experienced somebody is goes through a vetting thing. We feed it all to Colleen first. Colleen is our quality control. If Colleen does not approve, it does not get served. One second. What you got back here? Out of the gathering? They're actually putting one together right now. Yeah, for the first time. Everything at the gathering is volunteer run. So I am able to make it happen, and that's my capacity. So anything else extraneous is volunteer run. And we do have a group that actually volunteered to put a cookbook together this year. And so they collected a whole bunch of recipes from the last couple of years, and they're working on it right now. They're hoping to have it out by May. So I think I head over here.
Are there any places like right around here that you like to go, like say Belle Isle? I remember you there, when we were at a hike, you were going down there and foraging. But is there any place or like, say Belle Isle or someplace around here that you like to go and it's pretty?
I'm not actually from here. I'm from Jackson area.
Oh, okay.
So I was gonna say, I'm going to defer to Milton and Dean because they both live in Southeast Michigan and forage. Rouge Park?
Yeah? Oh, I'm right there.
Yeah, probably like if you were closer to Milford.
Rouge Park, good.
So
How often, Milton, how often do you go over to Rouge Park? Foraging.
I haven't been there for a while. Like any other place, you go, like Rachel said, you go for the season. Different times you go there.
yep.
Generally, working to me in mid-April, mid-October.
Yeah. Yeah. During the growing season.
Highland's got an area with incredible chaparral.
Yeah. There's places. There's little parks, and like I said, the books by Ellen Zakos and Lisa Rose will be really helpful for urban stuff. I don't specialize in urban foraging, but there are foragers who do. I'm lucky enough to live out in the middle of nowhere where I get to forage in like the farm fields. So, which I totally recommend. Make friends with your local farmers and go hang out at their farm fields. There's all kinds of wonderful stuff in farm fields.
What were you saying about crickets before?
Take their legs off.
Oh, no, it's self-flossing.
Yeah. So take the legs off.
Somewhere, like on personal property, if you've known Roundup's been used, how long do you have to avoid it?
Usually that has a pretty short half-life. So if it's been like several months, you should be fine. Yeah. Yeah. If you're digging stuff out of the ground, then you want to wait longer because the dirt itself that adheres, the dirt will have stuff in it. But the plants, if it's above ground, it gets washed off in the rain pretty quick. Yes. Good point, Dean. Mushrooms can and do concentrate stuff. So you have to be a lot more careful with mushrooms than plants.
Like everybody says, find an old orchard for morels. They say the pH is higher and that's what they like. But a lot of the older orchards are treated with arsenic. Use that arsenic to talk about.
Which goes back to knowing your territory. Yeah. Yeah. I've got cards if anybody wants cards. I'm just gonna put them in